NieR Automata is a complex game about morality, culture, nihilism and optimism, and existential dread. These themes are dense and layered throughout the game, but by studying the game, we can analyze how it portrays these themes in unique and interesting ways. In today's study, we are going to be looking at NieR Automata through two different cultural studies, to try and come to a better understanding of the game. Firstly, Mcluhan's hot and cool media, and secondly, Stuart Hall's encoding and decoding. NieR Automata presents some interesting ways of looking at both of these ideas through its gameplay, art style, narrative, and themes. Mcluhan's theory of hot and cool media suggests that there are two forms in which all media exists: hot and cool. Mcluhan says, hot media do not leave so much to be filled in or completed by the audience and need low participation, while cool media are high in participation or completion by the audience. By saying this, Mcluhan is suggesting that all media exists on a spectrum between hot and cool. Hot media is that quick satisfaction, the action in the moment that is easy to digest, while cool media is those deeper and more complex parts of media, maybe the themes or the subject, which require the audience to think about it more intensely. The unique property NieR possesses, and why we are discussing it today, is that the game is both hot and cool simultaneously. The game uses hot forms of gameplay and art direction, this being its hack and slash genre of combat and its heavily sexualized anime aesthetics of the characters. While it does this, it also presents a deeply complex narrative about morality, existential dread, and ideologies of nihilism and optimism. The combat is broadly appealing and easy to interact with. The characters use giant katana-style weapons, and the game uses an intuitive system with lots of input buffering and easy-to-complete combos. The character design is visually pleasing and eye-catching. The characters wear almost maid-like costumes, showing bare skin and revealing much of the character model itself. On the other hand, the narrative themes are intense and confronting at times, asking the player deep personal questions about their own values and beliefs. The game humanizes the machines, which are originally introduced as aliens of sorts, as purely the bad guys. Many parts of the game follow conventions and tropes, such as its combat or its purposefully generic-seeming anime plotline. This is all done to portray the game as hot. While it does this, it slowly piles on these feelings of dread or moral conflict, and eventually does away with its anime plotline to have a deeply cool narrative that asks some hard-hitting questions about the player's own ideology towards nihilism and optimism. These themes and ideologies are explored throughout the gameplay, and we can use Stuart Hall's encoding decoding to study how the game offers a unique way for the audience to understand the game's ideas. Encoding and decoding is an idea that says that there is always someone in a position of power, in this instance the game's director, who encodes a single message into the media, which then the audience decodes in a way that is influenced by their prior experience and own ideologies. Hall says, we must recognize the discursive form of the message has a privileged position in the communicative exchange, and that the moments of encoding and decoding, though only relatively autonomous in relation to the communicative process as a whole, are determinant moments. Hall says that in the determinant moment, which happens semi-automatically, the audience either have a dominant, negotiated, or oppositional view towards the message of the text. Dominant is where the audience agrees with the message. Negotiated is where they agree with part but disagree with other parts. And oppositional is where the audience completely disagree with the message of the text. It's important to note that Hall's initial theory of encoding and decoding is quite binary. He suggests the author only encodes a single meaning into the text, which is then decoded in differing ways by the audience. But in terms of games as a media, and specifically NieR and its unique storytelling methods, I think it is appropriate to extrapolate on Hall's idea and say that the director is encoding two messages simultaneously. Throughout NieR Automata, we are hacking our way through hundreds of machines. While this is happening, the characters are making commentary on the fact that the machines are developing language and culture.
Help me.
To be, it's fine. Their speech doesn't mean anything. They're just emitting words at random. If they wanted help, why would they be attacking us?
Yeah.
As we discover more about the machines, we begin to question our own actions more and more, but are incapable of doing anything other than what we are told to do. By the time the first credits roll, the player has many conflicting feelings. The second time they roll, the player is feeling uneasy about everything they've done so far. This is all brought to a climax in the third playthrough, where you are choosing between believing in what you've been doing the whole game, fighting for humanity's survival, or giving up and damning what remnants of humanity still exist. If we look at this narrative through Hall's encoding and decoding, we can see the game director has imposed two opposing ideologies. The audience can then make a choice between both. Those ideologies being nihilism and optimism. If the audience takes an oppositional view to the nihilism that is presented by the character NieS, they are then taking a dominant view to the character A2's optimism. And this goes vice versa for taking an oppositional view to A2's optimism. By having such a massively opposing ideologies, and such a complex and thorough way of portraying them, the game's director encodes two messages at once. Both Mcluhan and Hall's ideas both come into being in one of my favourite sections of the game. It is just at the beginning of the second playthrough. We play as a machine, just for a few minutes. This machine is trying to revive another machine by dumping oil on it. The controls here are extremely hot. You have move, pick up a bucket, and jump. But the message it is conveying is deeply cool. The machines have developed familial bonds. Hall's encoding-decoding is present in the director's choice to have the machines, the enemies of the player, be portrayed as sympathetic here. This then places two conflicting ideas of the machines in the player's head. The way the player decodes and forms their opinion on these machines then depends on their own personal experiences in life. Maybe they have experience with colonialism or invaders. Maybe they have overwhelming sympathy for others. Maybe they don't see robots as being able to have emotion. It all depends on the audience's personal experiences and ideologies. NieR Automata uses many unique ways to tell its story. It's a list that keeps expanding. I could talk about its use of biblical parallels to humanize the machines, its use of cultural elements to alienate mankind, or even its references to Shakespeare. But for today, that's all we have time for. Thank you.
This is a type of fruit. Our data suggests that mankind gained great intelligence from consuming fruit. So quit griping and eat it already.
All right, if that's what you want.
But once we're done, can we play together for a bit?
Fine.
Oh, great. Then I'll eat lots of fruit.